Good day, greetings from a very cold Pretoria, South Africa. My name is Dr. Charles Cotter. I'm the host of Talking to the Titans of Training. I'd like to welcome you to episode 6. Today we have a very special guest, Aubrey Liphokojoe, who represents a company by the name of Rantsane Training Academy. Aubrey will be joining us very shortly, all the way from Port Elizabeth, where I believe it's also freezing cold. Just to get the digital housekeeping out of the road, I'd like to welcome you to the show, Talking to the Titans of Training. Like I said, our guest is Aubrey. He represents a company, Rantsane Training Solutions. They've been in business for approximately 13 years. And I think it's going to be quite insightful because our previous guests of Talking to the Titans of Training have either been independent self-employed trainers or alternatively working in a corporate position. So Aubrey is a training provider, business owner, and he's certainly going to provide us a different perspective, and certainly we'd like to follow his journey over the last 16 years in the training and development industry. Like I said, my name is Dr. Charles Cotter. I'm an independent blended learning practitioner with over 19 years of industry experience in global talent acquisition and specialization, and also I'm a accredited trusted trainer with the global quality assurance body course conductor. Those of you that have previously watched Talking to the Titans of Training, I think you've got the backstory, but those of you that are new viewers, just to give you that kind of insight, well, I often believe that the training profession doesn't always get the recognition and credit that it deserves. And therefore, the purpose of Talking to the Titans of Training is just to celebrate and to acknowledge and also to salute the contribution, the work, and also the career and life journeys of some of the most influential servants within the industry. And that's why it's a great privilege for me to welcome Aubrey to the presentation very shortly. So at this point, I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome our guest, Aubrey Liphokojoe. He represents a company, he's a business development director, Rantsane Training Academy, all the way from Port Elizabeth. So Aubrey, I'd like to welcome you to the show and welcome to episode 6 of Talking to the Titans of Training.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Cotter. It's my pleasure having you on your station. How are you doing?
No, I'm very good, thanks. Okay. I believe the weather's freezing cold down in Port Elizabeth.
It's freezing, it's raining, I love it, and there's nothing, you see, whatever happens where in Gauteng, your thunders, your what, and I'm not experiencing that, yeah. It's
amazing. And it's quite ironic because Port Elizabeth, as you know, is my hometown. So I grew up in Port Elizabeth, and when we met approximately 12, 13 years ago, we met up in Johannesburg and we did a lot of work. And I'm actually thinking about it last night, you know, our professional journey together, like we said, dating back 12, 13 years. And I think you're the only training provider that I've worked with where we've had the privilege to work in every single of the 9 provinces in South Africa. So I think that's a remarkable achievement. And a couple of years ago, you relocated, you and your family, lock, stock and barrel, you relocated to my hometown, Port Elizabeth, and I stayed in Gauteng. How's that for a massive irony? But in any case, Aubrey, welcome to the show. I think you're familiar and you probably watched some of the other guests on the show, mainly from a training background, but also corporate learning development specialist, Dr. Krista Moorhouse, the previous show. So perhaps we could start, if you could turn back the clock. I know that you reminded me the other day when we chatted that you've been in the industry for 16 years. So perhaps you could take us back to those early years, where it all started, maybe the genesis of your career in training, and then the pathway that you followed to establishing Rantsane Training Academy. So when did it all start? How, when, where? And maybe you could also give us an indication, in those early years, did you have any mentors or coaches perhaps that steered you, that led you or kind of supported or guided you to achieve the career success that you have 16 years later?
Thanks so much. I didn't have much of the training background in terms of in the training industry. As I mentioned to you, I came to Gauteng, particularly in Joburg, in 2002. I just finished my accounting diploma, and I did the computerized accounting, which is Pastel. Then whilst I was figuring out what to do, where do I go, and just to start following up my career, then I was cornered by one business owner in Bloemfontein that gave me an opportunity just to help him with putting up his business, setting up with an accounting so that at least he can be able to know how much does he sell, how much stock is available. And in there, that's when he gave me certain roles that they were not familiar with me. I was just from the class of starting to supervise people because the way I started was I could do what I was called to do. Then all of a sudden, he started giving me some responsibilities whereby he will leave the business, tell me to check in some people and all that. I think that's where I started picking up some managerial and the training characteristics whereby I would tell the person, please do this, don't do this, speak to the clients like this, this is your business, things like that. So thereafter, I think I was with him for a year and some months. Then I just realized that there was no growth in there, and it's not the right environment that I was looking forward to. And I was getting a bit of pressure from my dad as well. He was telling me, can you do something else? That's when I decided to pack, and I came to Joburg, of which Joburg was a bit stiff. Looking for a job, one job, I think it was being looked after by 100 people compared to Bloemfontein, where one job maybe would be chased after 20 people or so. So it became relatively competitive, whereby I stayed almost for a year in Joburg without a job, but continue going to the interviews, continue reading, continue just checking what could work out for me. Till one evening, I was just chatting to my sister. Then she told me they are looking for people that can only use English, and they don't want experience. They don't want, you just have to. The only etiquette that they were looking forward for was your communication skills. Then I asked her, how much are they paying? Then she says they are not paying anything, but I think they are willing to give you transport, and the fact that you're doing nothing, I think is something that you need to do. Then I says, okay, now this will be an opportunity that can probably maybe open or unlock certain doors that I'm not familiar with whilst I'm just sitting at home. Then I gave it a try. Then I excelled within a month. And I figured it out how the business was, what they were doing, and actually I became much more knowledgeable compared to the other counterparts in the company, including the owner of the business. Then later on, there after 6 months, that's when I felt like, the business was there, but the direction of the owner, the operation manager, was not very right, whereby we knew where we were going. We had a very good team, but I didn't feel like it was the right place for me to be. Then I started researching what other companies were doing the similar thing, who were our competitors and all that. Then that's when I landed into a company called Marcus Evans. I think people that are familiar with the training industry, conferencing and all that, they should be able to know the company. I think it's, by that time it had, I think it had 62 offices worldwide. So that's where I went in there and joined them, and they took us through training. They didn't want you to start working without training. So I think I spent 16 days on training in terms of all the processes, all the departments that has to do with the training. So that's the place where I could say my training direction started making sense in terms of where does this join and all that. And we had pretty cool guys who could give us some directions. You have your in a team, you have your division director, you have your team manager, you have your other supervisors. That gives you some direction in terms of what you're doing. So also at Marcus Evans, I think looking at my characteristics and the burning desire that was in my heart, I didn't stay for a very long time at Marcus Evans. I think I was there for almost a year.
Mm.
Not that I wanted to leave, but it was because of certain things that happened that realized me that I think I should leave. I think it was for a goodwill.
Mm.
But also it's a place where at least I networked with a lot of people, including the person that also gave me a push and a word when I felt like I wasn't ready to get into the training industry. Then a person told me, I think, let me just say his name. And he was very instrumental and fundamental in terms of coaching me to get into the training industry. And his name was Derek Hendricks.
Mm.
So yeah, not that he knew me for a very long time, but it was just a conversation that I had with him over the phone. Then the next time when I was thinking of getting into registering a company, I thought of him, and he phoned. I said, I just wanted to check on you. Then I says, actually, I was also thinking about you. Then he says, all right, can we meet? I'm in Pretoria. I says, yeah, but I'm in Joburg. Then we decided to meet along Malibongwe and sat at Wimpy and have a 2-hour chat. And that's when I developed the high interest, because I felt like I knew, but I was not ready. But having spoken to him within that 2 hours, he gave me the boot that I think you can go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I think you know that Derek Hendricks was our very first guest on Talking to the Titans of Training, and I think he's played a very instrumental role in a lot of trainers, but also, like yourself, training providers. So I think fascinating story, and I'm just thinking back some of the other guests that we had on Talking to the Titans of Training, some of the similarities, the common denominators. You use the term burning desire, and I think, you know, maybe Derek was a catalyst, you know, who ignited this desire, burning desire. But based on what your sister said to you, encouraging you to take calculated risks, sometimes we need to volunteer our professional services just to get our foot in the door. And I think the training community and the modern training generation aren't always prepared to do that. So I think this is how you prove yourself. This is how you earn your stripes. I think that's very important. Starting out in Bloemfontein, relocating to Johannesburg, then ending up working for this global events company, Marcus Evans, meeting some key people in the industry. So very fascinating. I'm also thinking back some of our other guests that we often made the statement that sometimes training finds us and we don't necessarily find training. So sometimes it's just a chain reaction of different events or different circumstances, or sometimes just influential people that steer us in the right direction. So that's very important. Thank you for sharing that with us. So right about 2006, if I remember correctly, Aubrey, this is now this fire that you had, this burning desire to leave Marcus Evans after spending a year with them, getting certainly valuable training, in-house training. And then you started a company, Rantsane Mario Training Solutions, now I think more recently calling it the Training Academy. So tell us about the company, the history of the company, to where you are right now, almost 13, 14 years that you've existed as a business, as an accredited training provider. I'll be putting up a few slides very shortly just to give the viewers an overview of some of the learning programs that you offer and the accreditations that you have. But maybe just talk us very briefly through this very important chapter in your career in training from 2006 till where we are today, 2020, the establishment and the management of Rantsane Mario Training Academy?
Yeah, I mean, the company was established in 2006, and it was towards the end of the year. You can just imagine, as you start the company, most of the people that says now only start next year. But for me, that was the time where I felt like the desire is burning now. I cannot wait for next year just to get in there, and I started. And it was a bit hard for me to put up the infrastructure that was required for one to operate. So what I did also, there was people that I was in talk with, like people at the church. There's a guy who coached me also. His name is Kubeni Modley, and also another friend of mine who also became my boss briefly. Whilst I was moving my own company, and he called me to just to help him in his company. His name is John Mark Killian. They were very instrumental to push me and say, you can set up your office in your house and start operating. And that much I listened, and I started. And the last week of January, I managed to get I can say a huge contract. I mean, because I was from the time where I was getting paid a salary. Then this time I could draw the business of 575,000 that came in as the first contract when you open the business. Then it was an exciting experience, but also looking back from where I came, like for Marcus Evans, I had done very well. I think I was a top salesperson in terms of learning sales and learning development advisory for three consecutive months. So I felt like, okay, but how do I do this? Then I phoned the client. Thank you so much for the email. I received the news, and then 2 days later I got a call from the same company. They're telling me, we've just realized that your company is very new, and we don't know how much you understand training and whether you could be able to do this work. So I was supposed to do training, I think, in 6 different groups. The people, there were 126 delegates in different locations in South Africa. So then they told me that they were going to slash the contract in two half. The other one, they will give it to a more well-known and established company. Then the other one, they will give it to me. And they asked me also if I was willing to take that. And I just felt like, okay, it's very unfortunate, but what do you do? And it's much better than having nothing. Then I accepted, and then that's how we started with our new project, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I know it's amazing, and I think that's in that second year of training, that's when you and I got to know each other, and I think we started working also. Towards the end of the year, we started collaborating. But yeah, I mean, fantastic success story, proving yourself in a corporate learning and development environment, top salesman, and then taking those skills and then taking that calculated risk, like I said, starting your own company, becoming an entrepreneur, and very fortunate to get your first contract, although it was rationalized, but to get it within 3 or 4 months of trading. And like you said, the rest is history. And we'll talk about some of these service offerings and some of the accreditations just later on during the discussion. I'll put up a couple of slides in that regard. But certainly a very reputable company, and you've almost spent an entire career building up this company, building up your company's brand equity and the reputation. And I think even I was just reminded this morning when I was preparing for the interview that in 2015, we had that interview with the big small business show. I don't know if you can remember that. which was
Yeah,
television. It just popped up. I was just doing some research, and I remember. So I think as early as 2015, I think the industry started recognizing that Aubrey Liphokojoe and Rantsane Mario is somebody to be taken seriously, somebody that is here to make an impact and to make a difference. And I remember saying during that same interview that one of the outstanding features which differentiates your company, of course, is your commitment to quality and excellence, and using only the best trainers. And I think that all the years has stood you in good stead. And this has enabled you to go from strength to strength and to not only survive, but also prosper in a very competitive, sometimes even saturated training industry. It's a very difficult to make your mark in the industry. So Aubrey, 16 years in the industry, going from strength to strength. If you had to pinpoint your 3 career highlights that you could perhaps share with us, or alternatively, what would you say if you had to advise other training providers or people that have aspirations of making their mark in the industry, what would you say are the 3 critical success factors that you need to focus on to distinguish yourself in this ultra competitive learning and development industry? What would those factors be, or what would those career highlights be?
I wouldn't generalize that, but I would, I think, give the advice of what I did in my case.
Yes.
When I started seeing the company growing, I realized that from my past career, what I knew was just the fundamentals and the elements of accounting, and how to cost, how to look at the numbers. But I felt like I needed more growth in terms of developing, in terms of getting much more education. Then I had to enroll for a BCom in business management and marketing at Emelin. So it was very good, because it enabled me from running the business at the same time applying what I'm learning in my own business. So I did that. Then the other things that I started bringing in, speaking to the people, both from the industry, the trainers that I was using, and the lecturers. The most important thing that came up about was the commercial awareness. And I started looking at the companies that I had worked on, and the one that stood up most was Marcus Evans. And I started thinking, how can I do things like the way they are doing, so that I can just reach to that degree whereby I can start collecting the same targets that they set out in a month. For me, that started coming out immediately in my business. The other one was the understanding of the product offering. Because in Joburg alone, the time when I went into training, I had very little knowledge in terms of how many people were operating as training providers. I was looking only at the huge players in the market, but I was not aware of the small players. So I started identifying them. So that was the time when I started saying, how can I differentiate myself from the other small players of my size? And that's when I started looking at the developments in terms of getting accreditation, so that I don't just operate as a training company that's not accredited. We started putting on the quality assurance in place, and eventually we started realizing high rate of learning projects implementation coming place, because also the sitters came in to start monitoring what we are doing, to see that at least we are adding value to the clients and also to the learning and development industry. So those are the things that I came. Besides that, the other thing that I would say would be just the character that I have with the people that I was working with. I showed them much of a team player. So a lot of people came and started working with me, and I can say I didn't build Rantsane Mario alone. They were very instrumental. Those who left and those who remained, they're still very instrumental in terms of the value add that they've added to the growth of the company.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So thanks for sharing that with us, Aubrey. So just I took a few notes, and just from my perspective, just to paraphrase, so just to summarize, what you were saying is, one of the drivers of your business success, the business growth, of course, is empowering yourself with a good education. It started in the early years in Bloemfontein with your accounting qualification, but you did realize that you needed something more than that. You needed to understand, like you said, your commercial awareness. You needed to have a business acumen. So formally, empowering yourself with that education was very important. Also, you said having insight into competitive intelligence, not just the big players in the market, in the industry, but also the small players who tend to be more competitive, ironically, than the bigger players. They have a very similar business model. Their pricing strategies and structures tend to be very similar. So I think that's very important. And of course, like you said, product knowledge and understanding the dynamics with regards to products. You spoke about accreditation being a deal breaker to show differentiation. You're not just one of those fly-by-nights in the industry, and there are many. I mean, we can't deny that. We can't ignore that fact. So accreditation and committing to a quality management system, quality assurance, and also like what you said about your leadership personality, your character, but also not, wanting to take credit for all of the success, which is very typical of an exceptional leader, that humility that you demonstrate, and people that have contributed along this career pathway over the last 13 years of building this company. I think it's very humble of you to do that. So I think that's exceptional. Thank you for that. Aubrey, I think the topic that's on everybody's lips at the moment globally, not just in the learning and development industry, but right across all spheres of society, is COVID-19. So if you could maybe just give us, your, perspective on COVID-19. How did you, as a business owner, as a learning and development professional, as a company, how have you responded to COVID-19, all the restrictions that have been placed on the learning and development industry? For example, we can no longer do face-to-face training, and the migration to online and digital learning solutions. But also, we're struggling right now as an industry, and the practitioners within the industry. What advice would you share with them to empower them to maybe get out of a bit of a slump, and maybe to continue to prosper, to be more resilient in the face of COVID-19?
Thanks so much for that, Dr. Cotter. Yeah, I mean, COVID-19, it's a pandemic that just erupted, and in fact, when it started, we thought it is not going to escalate at the rate that it did, yes. But it came. It came when we were just leaving our holidays, getting into the slot of starting some training projects, and it came and put everything on hold. I think everyone should be aware the UNESCO confirmed that the COVID pandemic has significantly disrupted the education in the past 4 months, whereby everyone is at home. They are very uncertain. They don't know what's going to be happening. All the universities in South Africa, they closed, and even across Africa and many other nations. So with Rantsane, Mario, man, the first thing that we started doing was to change our standard operating procedures. We saw that things were not going to be done in the way we used to do them. In fact, like when we speak about setting up processes like online learning, it's something that 2 years ago I met a guy at a meeting when I was attending a seminar there at the Rantsane Convention Center. The guy was coming from Australia. He mentioned a lot of ideas in terms of how time and also money can be saved in online training. And I started contacting a lot of people, and there's one lady, Kim, in Joburg, who was willing to put on me. But the challenge that we're having is when you are accredited, every online platform that you need to, it's supposed to be speaking to your accreditation body, you see, for approval. And those are the things that delayed us in terms of taking things online. But immediately when COVID came in, it came in like to enforce that from not only companies, but also from the sitters, the government, to see that learning should be taken to online. So we changed our SOPs, looking at what learning management platforms can we take in place, how do we do this, and is it going to be something that's going to work? Because we not only train in the metropolitans alone, we sometimes train in the remote areas. So there are a lot of things that we took time looking at that. How are they going to be used? And after that, we realized that blended learning was going to be much more effective when we look at accommodating the people that are in rural, and also people that cannot, that have got difficulties in terms of memory span of attention for the session that can be done online. So we thought of if the training can be done probably online and pre-recorded, and also probably arrange certain days, either 1 day or 2 days, whereby a trainer can at least sit in terms of the normal tradition way of training, whereby at least if the learners can be able to interact with the trainer and add value to that, at the same time realizing the COVID protocols of the number of people that are supposed to be sitting and all that. So we worked on that, and we also looked at what other tools and instruments can we use to communicate, so that at least we don't just sit and lose communication. So we did that a lot, not only on WhatsApp, but we started looking at things like Teams, how do we track data, and we also just to have the normal communication on everyday basis, both the challenges that we are facing as a company and also on our personal capacities. Yeah, so we did that a lot. So I don't know how other people are looking at it, but what I do know is a lot of people, they are emotionally broken down. But for things like this, it's something that no one was ready for that. So breaking down cannot solve the problem. We need to live, and we need to be very innovative. We need to come up with solutions. We need to support the people that we're working with, and even the industry, because people need to learn. In fact, during this time, it's this very moment where people should come down and realize what do they need to do with all this time that they need to have. They've got restriction of movement. So that means they've got much more time that they can sit and take audit of what skills do they need to add value to their personal development, so that they can be able to effect that change of skills in the marketplace. So we've been looking at that. And the other thing is also just continuously interacting with your clients, because you don't want to be swallowed into this COVID depression environment, whereby you're just thinking, when am I going to be attacked, or when am I going to be taken to there? So we try by all means, at least you phone your client, send them an email, and just to catch up, so that at least there's just that continuous interaction and support.
Yeah. That's excellent. Thanks, Aubrey. I think you've captured a winning strategy there. It's also reassuring for me to hear that the focus is now shifted to blended learning, because I've been preaching that this is the future of learning in South Africa and the African market. And I know you also have ambition of expanding your business model into other parts of Africa. So blended learning, I think, is a valuable lesson for all of us. And I think we need to gear ourselves. We need to get future fit. And I jotted down, I love what you said about being vigilant, being innovative, being solutions focused. You know, we can't surrender to this virus, because it's just one of the waves of change, the many waves of change that we will be confronted with the industry. And maybe a deal breaker, and I think it's in the spirit of the Rantsane Mario Training Academy way, and that is constant and regular client engagement, staying in touch, having your finger on the pulse, understanding what your clients' needs are, because learning is the currency of business. And we can't, because of this virus, we can't just stop operating. We have to continue this quest, this crusade to practice our profession. So I think it's very inspirational that you haven't surrendered to the virus, and in-house you've got your internal operating procedures, your learning management system, your business model. All of that has been reconfigured, realigned, because as you acknowledged, and I think this is a lesson for all of us, we cannot say it's business as usual. It's a business unusual. And I think I've said it previously, the one term that I absolutely hate at the moment, this cliche, is the new normal. There's nothing normal about what we're going through right now. We shouldn't sugarcoat it. We should say it's abnormal. What we're going through right now is abnormal, and the learning and development industry is no exception. And we need to adapt. If we don't adapt, we're going to basically go out of business. So thank you for your inspiration, and thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being so resilient. We have to look to people like yourself to lead the industry towards getting us through this very difficult and turbulent time. Aubrey, if I could just ask you to spend some time, if you could just give us a quick overview of the catalog and the portfolio, Rantsane Mario, the different training programs that you offer for prospective clients or learners that may be interested in contacting you. And we'll also share your contact details at the end of this discussion. So if you could just maybe briefly, in about 3 minutes, just give us a quick rundown, the services CETA accredited programs, but also the MICT CETA, where you have accreditation, what programs you offer, and also the LG CETA, the local government CETA. And then maybe just combining that with the question, so why should we use Rantsane Mario Training Academy? So what are the performance analytics that you could share with us to convince us, your business case, why we should continue to do business with your company?
Thank you so much, Dr. Cotter. With Rantsane Mario, we've got 3 segments of offering. We've got the first line of offering is looks at the executive development programs, where we develop people that are above your supervisory levels. We've got programs like your executive development programs that looks at management development, organization and change development, the core business essential, effective leadership, human resource management, and also your emerging management development programs. So those they are clustered under the executive development programs for people that are sitting at the cluster of above the supervisory level. And for people that under your NQF level 5 coming down, we under the services CETA, we've got your business practice, business administration, then we've got your generic management. All those they range from level 1 to level 5. So we've got those available, and we also have your hygiene and cleaning, which is for people that cleans, and also at the higher level, which looks at the supervisory level. Then on the information technology, we've got your national certificate in end user computing. It looks at your training from using Word to your advanced level of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and also just the atmosphere of the Microsoft operating system. We also have the system support and technical support for people that give support for whatever infrastructure is in an office building or working environment. So we also take learnerships on that, and even for people that wants to support to sponsor learnership on that environment, we've got the accreditation for that. Then there's also a Canadian institute that we're affiliated with, where we run programs like your quality management system, your business process improvement, and your quality assurance controls. Those are mostly our elite programs, and also they come with an examination that you need to take. So for people that are willing to do that, they will sit also on an examination and the certification is being done by them, but not for us. Then under your local government, we've got your ward committee governance trainings, your municipal finance. Then we've got your environmental practice for level 2 and 3. Your local economic development and your disaster risk management. So those are the offerings that we have. Why we should think of using Rantsane Mario is we've got a high range of programs that are accredited of, I think, more than 25 nation certificate and diploma qualifications that we have that one can enroll in. And besides that, we run the countries throughout, and not only in South Africa, but we talk of Lesotho, Swaziland, Namibia, and also other SADC countries, and I think we've done training there before. In terms of your learnerships and the exit learners degree, most of the time we're sitting at 95% of the people that enroll on our programs. They qualify and exit with a certificate or the diploma in that qualification that they've taken. So those ratios are very high. That shows that the people and the trainers that are preparing these learners are well committed to the learners, that they should be able to get the knowledge and also advice in terms of how do they pass and apply the knowledge that they are doing. Because most of these courses, the people, they attend the class, and after that we also send them to the workplace where they're supposed to exhibit what they are learning in class as the workplace experiential learning. So those are the key things that one can look at using Rantsane Mario. We've got a very high rate of client satisfaction.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us, Aubrey. Exceptional performance analytics. I must be honest with you. I've partnered and collaborated with over 70 different training providers, both locally, continentally, but also internationally. Rantsane Mario being one of them. In fact, our relationship dates back as we've established 12 years. And I don't think there's any organization that can compare in terms of those performance analytics and the impact that you've made, certainly in Southern Africa. So I think it's very impressive. And I would strongly encourage anybody who would like to, like you said, invest in a learnership, or somebody that would like to register or sign up for your programs. You have pivoted towards online learning. You are an accredited training provider. You're offering a blended learning solution. So I think it makes a lot of business sense that both individual learners, but also companies and sponsors would then consider partnering with Rantsane Mario. Thank you for that. Excellent. Aubrey, let's start wrapping up the interview. I will be sharing your contact details right at the end. So if there are interested companies or learners, they're welcome to contact you. Maybe just the last question from my side. You're working on a lot of different projects at the moment. You make use of outsourced trainers, you contract trainers. I think a lot of the viewers of Talking to the Titans of Training are independent, self-employed trainers. So when you're looking to appoint a trainer, what sort of competency profile are you looking at? And my question would be twofold, directed at people like myself, well-established trainers, 19 years of industry experience, but also people that are looking to break into the industry that would maybe like to partner on any of your learnerships to facilitate those learnerships. So what advice would you share with well-established, but also novice trainers who are looking to make their mark in the industry? They want to work with your company. What sort of competencies are you looking for?
Thanks so much for that. The first thing that I would say is Rantsane Mario, from the time we started operating, when we started operating with the ethos of when you look at the Marker 7, the way they were doing, they were looking at people that are subject experts in terms of training and development. So that's what we have continuously doing that. So when I'm looking for the trainer, mostly I'm not going to pick somebody who is just a general trainer. It will depend on what program I'm doing, and I will look at the current database of the trainers that have signed the service level agreement in place. if there's no one who is in line of or maybe is busy, then when I make some calls, at least I should be able to get somebody who is closer to the team of the people that I've been using for training that are available. Yeah. So people, they should be having the good cultural understanding of the learning development. They should also be aware of certain protocols that happens, because we train in different parts of the country and also different parts of provinces. So protocols in terms of those areas also, they are very key in terms of training, so that at least we don't want to throw a trainer into a dead end without understanding where he's going. So all those things we look and advise them. And we also look at a person who's got a track record whereby he's worked in a training environment, he's delivered the learning programs, people have been satisfied, and also the recommendation or the people that he has put as a reference, they will contact them, and we also do our own due diligence just to make sure that what he puts on the paper is exactly what he can do. But 13 years doing that, I don't think it's a problem that I have. But for people that are coming or that are new in this industry, I would say, if you can deliver, rather say you can. If you can't, rather say I can deliver this I cannot. A service provider like me who's got a vast experience should be having a solution in terms of how can he maneuver the topics, and also just to bring in somebody who cannot for what element you cannot tackle on that, because we don't want to compromise the quality of learning that we are giving, because it has got a high impact in terms of the learners and also the client, because they are paying for the training that we offer. So for people that are coming in there, I would say, first, they would understand the culture, the deeper understanding of the learning development and the project management, be willing to travel, and also be willing to maybe be contacted sometimes, awkward hours. When I say awkward hours, maybe around 7 p.m. coming down, not only at 4:30. So those are kind of the things that I would say.
Yeah, that's excellent.
And also the other thing should be just to have the love of developing people, not only the check that we're gonna have at the end of the day, but just the love of like the way you do it. I think I've done a lot of training programs with you. You've given me more than 100%, of which when I'm writing the check, I'm very happy because I know the value that you have added to learning development. So those are the things that I think I would encourage to the people that have been in the industry, and also to the newcomers. Then lastly, I would say just to have the integrity, because when I send you to go and do the training, you are representing Rantsane Mario. So that should be also something that a person should be paying attention, that when he goes there, when he stands in there, he is Rantsane Mario representing me, because that's the contractual agreement that we have.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Thanks, Aubrey. I like what you said about being a brand ambassador, for Rantsane Mario. I think that's very important. The integrity, I think this is just reflecting on some of the other guests of talking to the titans of training. There seems to be a couple of common denominators: being authentic, being realistic with your delivery and your expectations. I think that's very important. And like you said, being a subject matter expert, I think our previous guests have always said that's important. Specialization, which always trumps generalization. And I think a unique concept that you've introduced is this cultural intelligence, understanding the protocols, understanding the difference between in-house versus a public program, and all of the dynamics. I think that's very important. And having somebody with a proven track record of success that can contribute to building the brand. And I mean, those very impressive performance analytics that you have, you need to have partners who will enable a continuation of that culture, performance excellence. So thank you for that. I think it's very important that we all sensitize to these training provider expectations. Aubrey, I'm going to ask you to wrap up, and maybe last thing from your side, if you could just share your company contact details with us. So I'm going to give you maybe 2-3 minutes if you could just close out to share your company details, and just coinciding with that, any final words or any final advice that you would like to share with our viewers.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. In concluding, what I would say is we are what we are, and for a person to know the offering that we do, they would rather at least give us a try. And I can tell you, we're not going to disappoint them. We are results driven, and the other thing that I could say probably maybe to service providers like me and also trainers is whilst we look at our independent company as a competitor, I think the best thing that we could look at is to look at how can we do certain work to achieve what we want to achieve. By doing so, at least then we have a very good way of looking at business synergies and collaborations that we can work around, so that at least we could be able to continuously serve the people in terms of learning and development, because that's what we went into the business, than mostly looking at each other as the competitor. So those are the other things that I could say into closing. With Rantsane Mario, I've collaborated with a lot of people, and I'm still looking forward to collaborate with a lot of people in different types of programs. But mostly what I want is a win-win situation that we get out of there. I don't want to collaborate with people that are gonna give me nightmares whereby I'm not able to sleep because of things that I need to answer, which is supposed to be answered by another party. So those are the things that I could say in closing. There are a lot of opportunities that are out there, but through collaborations, I think there's a lot of doors that can open, and there are a lot of business that can be accomplished, because other people will find that probably they might not complete their projects due to budget or probably the capacity in terms of running those programs. So it's better to look at such factors whereby you factor collaboration into the way you're doing the work here.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Aubrey. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I love what you said about creating this sense of community, a business community, which is defined by collaboration, seeking out mutually beneficial collaboration opportunities. It speaks to what a lot of other guests have said on talking to the Titans of Training, to create this abundance mindset as opposed to a scarcity mindset. So I think that's very important. So if there's any of the viewers, individual learners or companies who would like to partner with Rantsane Mario, you're welcome to go onto their website. It's www.rantsanemario.co.za. You can contact them telephonically. I have put up the contact details, email, and also I'm sure, Aubrey, that we'll find your company on social media. I know that you're very active on LinkedIn. You have a Facebook company page, also a Twitter account. So I think all the conventional ways of reaching out and contacting you, I think, are available. And I'm just going to put up, for the last time, I'm just going to put up the contact details. So Aubrey, the landline number, that's in Johannesburg and also Port Elizabeth. The website address, your cell phone number, that looks like your cell phone number, and our listeners and viewers are welcome to contact you. Aubrey, from my side, I'd just like to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your career journey over the last 16 years. Long may you continue to prosper in this very competitive, ruthless, relentless industry. Thank you for sharing your advice and wisdom. I think you've given us a different perspective, a different insight. And again, thank you for your time. And that's quite late in the afternoon. But as you said, it's a 24/7 business. So unfortunately, we can't punch in and punch out, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So thank you for that. You are indeed a titan of training. So I like to thank you, and thank you for our business association, which has evolved into friendship over the last couple of years. So thank you for that. And I'd like you to continue to be successful. And again, I really appreciate that you could contribute to talking to the Titans of Training.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Dr. Cotter. It is also my pleasure having you, having been invited to your show, and I look forward to contribute to where I can in the learning industry, and also I look forward to working with you and the allies of your caliber in the industry. Yeah. Thank you.
That's a great pleasure. Thanks, Aubrey. Keep well, and hopefully things hotten up a bit down in Port Elizabeth and you don't get too cold. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. You are indeed a titan of training.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
So from our side, this is Dr. Charles Cotter. I'd just like to sign out. Just a quick reminder of my 5 pillars of training subject matter expertise. I specialize in strategic human resources management, strategic learning and development, management and leadership development at all different levels, power skills, soft skills, often referred to, also business communication. I also want to remind you that I'm an accredited trusted trainer with the Global Quality Assurance Authority course conductor. And also, you're welcome to contact me on my mobile number. I've given you my email address. Please, if I could ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will be rolling out a number of learning programs. I call it the Notabene Learning Channel, which will give you a short 5-minute video clip over and above talking to the titans of training in the areas of my subject matter expertise. You'll also, similar to Aubrey, you'll find me very functional and very active on LinkedIn, also a company page, Twitter, Facebook company page, and you'll also find a portfolio of my slideshow presentations on SlideShare. So this is Dr. Charles Cotter signing out. I'd like to thank my guest, Aubrey Liphokojoe from Rantsane Training for joining us, episode 6. I have a couple of very interesting guests lined up, also from a training provider perspective, but also an independent trainer. Some of them represent a global accomplishment. So I really look forward to that. And thank you for supporting Talking to the Titans of Training. I look forward to the next couple of shows. Thank you. Bye-bye.